Hey there, fellow Planeswalkers, it's Steve for Collectomania. We're here doing our first brew preview for Dominaria. Yeah, I know, super early. So we've got Slimefoot the Stowaway. This has got to be by far, so far, my favorite legendary. I know it sounds ridiculous, he's maybe a little bit underpowered for a lot of people's tastes, but unfortunately this guy might kick Thelian out of my commander position in my green-black deck, so we'll see what happens there. So anyway, Slimefoot. He's a one colorless green-black, or black-green, legendary fungus. Awesome creature typing. 2/3. Has whenever a sapling you control dies, Slimefoot the Stowaway deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. Really powerful, really cool. Love that effect. Also has pay 4 colorless, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token, so perfect for his abilities, basically. So what are we trying to do with this awesome new legendary creature that we just got? Essentially we're trying to generate as many sapling tokens as we possibly can. One of the best ways I've found to do that is through these Thaliids. So as you can see on screen now, we've got a Vital Spore Thaliid. He's a colorless and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, and this is what's important, put a Spore counter on Vital Spore Thaliid. So weird Spore counters, I know it's a pain in the butt to keep track of. I actually keep separate colored dice in my Thelion deck just to kind of keep track of Spore counters and +1/+1 counters. Then you can then remove 3 Spore counters from Vital Spore Thaliid and put a 1/1 green sapling creature token into play. So essentially what we're trying to do. But it also has sacrifice a sapling, target creature gains haste until end of turn. So really good for creating a bunch of tokens that you're really trying to get. Also really good for sacrificing those tokens to trigger the Slimefoot ability. So basically 2 birds with 1 stone. And obviously, they designed this card around these cards. I think there's about 25 of them that are really good, as far as playable, and I would suggest. So we'll go through a few of those choices here. First up secondly is a Deathspore Thaliid. This is probably one of the biggest reasons for going green-black before this guy came out. So you've got a colorless and a black zombie fungus, really cool creature typing, 1/1, and essentially everything that the other guy did except for this guy's sack ability, sacrifice sapling, target creature gets -1/-1 until end turn. So really powerful. Can be great removal, especially on indestructible creatures. So I've killed Avacins this way, even just by nuking them with -1/-1 counters and just getting rid of them. No more indestructible for you. Then we've got a Psychotrope Thaliid. This guy's really great for drawing cards. There's actually another Thaliid that actually is getting released in the Dominaria set that does a similar ability, but he doesn't have the Spore counters like this guy does. So he's not generating tokens for you like this guy is. So I would recommend this guy over the other one, although I'd probably include both of them, to be honest. Then we've got a Savage Thaliid, really great for having just a beefy guy. I mean, he's 5/2, so he swings for a lot. Doesn't really block for a whole lot, of course, but he's pretty good on the power. Also, you can sacrifice sapling and regenerate target fungus, so, I mean, you can sacrifice sapling, regenerate your commander, this guy, whoever you really want to. And then a key card, in my opinion, for this deck is the Spore Sower. Basically, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on each fungus you control. So this isn't only affecting itself, so it's getting a counter, but all of your other Thaliids are getting a counter as well. So now you're kind of doubling up on the counters a little bit, which is really effective. And then we've got a favorite of mine, and that's Namada Grove Guardian. I actually designed the first Thalion deck around Chris's deck, which was running this guy as the commander. It's an absolutely ridiculous commander. it's interesting to see where because it's mono green sapling tokens, but in this deck I think it'll be great. So 4 colorless, 2 green, 4/5 Treefolk Legend. Pay 3, put a 1/1 green sapling creature into play, of course, and then sacrifice a sapling. All saplings get +1/+1 until end of turn. So if you think about that, if you've got 23 saplings out or something like that, you sacrifice 3, everybody's getting +4/+4, and now you've got a ridiculous army. And who knows what else is going on. Plus, you've just sapped everybody for 4 life, and you've just gained 4 life. So, just super powerful. Then we've got a Jade Mage. This is really popular to include as well. 1 colorless, 1 green, 2/1 human, pay 3, make a sapling. So, I really like to pair these things with untapped land effects. There's a ton of them out there, but just making a ton of land, ramp, whatever you need to do, and just making a ton of saplings all of a sudden is really powerful. Then we've got Vertel, the Ancient. So 4 colorless, 2 green, legendary, Treefolk again, 4/7. It's got a kicker cost, which is kind of cool. It's also got sapling creatures and other Treefolk creatures get +1/+1, so a buff automatically for your entire team for the most part. And then basically when he comes into play, you kick him and you get that many saplings. So say you pay 9 mana, you get 3 saplings in addition to having this guy. And then going on to the second kind of, I guess, main theme of our deck, we've got Skull Muncher here. So Devour 1, so it's 4 colorless, 1 green, Devour 1, 3/3. When he comes into play, you sacrifice creatures to him. That's what the Devour is. He gets a +1/+1 counter for each creature you sacrifice, and then you draw a card for each one of those creatures you sacrifice as well. So just a really good engine, really good card draw engine, especially if you can recur him and cast him multiple times. And then we've got a Mycoloth, which I don't know if you could actually run this deck without this guy. He's absolutely ridiculous. So 3 colors, 2 green, fungus, 4/4, Devour 2, so same thing with the other guy, except for now, when he comes in and devours a creature, you're going to get 2 +1/+1 counters instead of 1, so he gets pretty boppy pretty quick. If you think about it, you sacrifice 4 creatures, all of a sudden he's got +8/+8, so that's really good, especially with the second ability, which is, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token for each +1/+1 counter on Mycoloth. So that could get pretty nuts. Getting 8 saplings at the beginning of your turn for basically nothing could be ridiculous. And they've got a Death Mutation, so 6 colorless and a black and a green sorcery. Destroy target non-black creature. It can't regenerate. Put X 1/1 green sapling creature tokens on the battlefield, where X is that creature's converted mana cost. So I know it's a really expensive card, but I've actually used it to great effect. You're essentially destroying something you don't want to be there, and you're also gaining a ton of saplings tokens. So think about doing this to something ridiculous, like a Colossus of something, you know, anything really that has a ton of power. 12/12, you get 12 sapling tokens and you destroyed a threat, so there's really no downside here. And then feeding into the sacrifice engine, we've got Skull Clamp, of course. You know, it's basically the easiest way to draw cards in here. You just make a sapling token, then you draw 2 cards, and then you get the trigger, and then everybody's really mad at you because everybody's losing life and you're drawing cards. Really effective. Then, of course, with that type of effect, you want Grave Pact, you want pretty much any of these, you know, like Dictate of Erebos is another great example, or even the Butcher of Malakir, any card like that is going to be amazing in this type of deck. Then, of course, things like Eldrazi Monument. Say you've got that situation where you've played the Namada and you can make a bunch of tokens, and then all of a sudden you've got Eldrazi Monument giving them all flying and indestructible. You don't really care about sacrifice a creature at the beginning of your upkeep because you've got a ton to sacrifice, plus it helps you anyway. Like, there's no downside here. And then, of course, when we're talking tokens, we definitely want to run this suite of Parallel Lives, which is absolutely ridiculous, of course, just making double tokens, but even better, of course, Doubling Season. So if you think back to our Thaliids, they get spore counters at the beginning of the upkeep, so now they're actually going to get 2 spore counters, which is just going to start doubling and doubling and doubling, and you're just going to keep getting more and more saplings. And believe me, no one really knows what you're doing when you're playing this deck, especially if you go the Thaliid route, because they're usually looking at spore counters like, what's going on? Those don't really mean anything until you start pulling them off and making a ton of saplings, like way more saplings than they thought you could. Because if you think about it, you pull 3 spore counters off a Thaliid, you get 2 sapling tokens just because of Doubling Season, so awesome. And then, of course, since we are going kind of tribal, Coat of Arms is great, not only for our saplings, which is what it's mainly here for, you know, 10 saplings is a ridiculous amount of power, but we are playing quite a few funguses, so even if you get a little bit of an army of funguses out there, you can actually win with those guys as well. Of course, as always with this card, be a little bit careful. You might run up against other tribal decks, and that could be really bad. And then, of course, we've got things like Second Harvest. So, say you're down to 10 sapling tokens and you need like 20 to do something ridiculous. Now you can just cast it instant speed, get 20 tokens, or whatever you want, really. And then probably just nuke the entire board, kill everybody. Well, not nuke the board, but kill everybody with the board. That's what I'm getting at. And then, of course, with any deck like this, you want to run those overrun effects. So Triumph of the Hordes is the one that I pulled out here for an example, but Craterhoof is another great example. Pretty much any of them. Overrun works just fine, you know, or even Namada, as we talked about before, but I think Triumph of the Hordes is probably my favorite. No one ever really sees it coming, surprisingly. It's not a card that I see a lot in Commander, but you can kill people really fast, because really all it takes is 10 infect damage, and it's not like you're trying to push through that crazy amount of damage, so it's almost like a guaranteed overrun in the for the most part, unless somebody has, like, you know, something that fights against infect or something like that. So anyway, that is the brew preview for Slimefoot the Stowaway. I hope you guys really enjoyed, and there will be a ton of these coming out here pretty soon, so get ready for like 30 brew previews. Anyway, thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye.